This video might get me killed because in this video, I'm going to be exposing the truth about an industry that generates between 12 and 14 billion dollars of revenue every single year in just the US alone. And that is the porn industry. 12 to 14 billion dollars per year. That is what you are up against. And I hate to break it to you, but you don't stand a chance going up against the porn industry. You don't stand a chance whatsoever. Because the reason why they're able to generate so much money is because the supply and demand are both very, very high. 70% of men ages 18 to 24 watch pornography at least one time per month. And you might argue that that does not warrant the label of addiction. But I beg to differ, because I bet if you asked that 70% of men in that age demographic that you probably fall into, or at the very least near, to stop watching that pornography video every month, they wouldn't be able to. You see, addiction is characterized by the inability to stop partaking in an action, even if you consciously don't want to do it. And you are more than likely addicted to pornography. And that is not your fault. Again, 12 to 14 billion dollars of revenue. 70% of men between 18 and 24. You're not going to overcome this addiction to pornography unless you watch this whole video. Because in this video, I'm going to share some key information that you need to know to be able to not only defeat that industry, but also help others defeat that industry as well. That said, why is pornography bad? Why is porn bad? After all, it's normal. 70% of men between 18 and 24 are watching it. Why is it bad? Well, just because something's normalized doesn't mean that it's good or beneficial. And to illustrate this point, I want to give you another statistic that you might find very, very jarring, because I know I found it jarring. And that is, and by the way, I have all of my statistics here to the side, and if you want to confirm these statistics for yourself, you can click the link in the description to verify them for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. But 9% of porn users are under the age of 12. And not only that, but the average age of first exposure to pornography is 11 years old. Now, I want you to ask yourself something. Ask yourself this one question right here. Assuming you don't have a child that's in that age range, if you did have a child who was 11 or 12 years old, would you willingly show them a pornographic video? Would you feel comfortable knowing that your child is consuming pornographic content? If you would be a suitable parent, a responsible parent, I'm going to assume that the answer is no. Bearing that in mind, if you're uncomfortable with your child watching that sort of content, why are you comfortable watching that content yourself? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Jordan, that's for children. I'm not a child. I'm an adult. I'm between 18 and 24. And hey, I hear you. I'm 24 myself. I'm a grown man. But what you have to understand is that your brain doesn't stop developing until your mid to late 20s. Your brain does not stop developing until your mid to late 20s. So if you're in that 18 to 24 demographic, although you're not a child, your brain is still developing. And you are, with every single second of pornographic content that you consume, halting the development of your brain. You're stunting your brain's growth. These are critical development years for developing a sense of reason and logic that is absolutely critical to being able to function and thrive in modern day society, or really just in the adult world in general. And if you're between 18 and 24, I'm sure you're starting to figure that out right now. As a matter of fact, the stress of impending adulthood is probably what's driving you toward your addiction in the first place. What do I mean by that? Well, porn affects your brain by desensitizing your dopamine receptors. In other words, the reason why you're watching pornography is because it gives you a dopamine rush, which makes you feel better about your current situation without having to change anything about your current situation. In other words, you're seeking a temporary escape and you're receiving it. The problem with this, aside from the moral aspect of consuming pornography, or rather the lack thereof, the problem with this is that you're desensitizing your dopamine receptors, which means that with every pornographic video that you consume, each successive video that you watch, and let's be real, you're watching more than one video. Okay, you're not going back and watching the same video over and over and over again for years on end, and I'll touch on that here in a second as well. But with each successive video that you're watching, you're raising the bar for giving yourself the dopamine rush. And because of that, life literally becomes less enjoyable. How is that possible? Well, again, since you're raising the bar for your dopamine receptors, pornography at some point will no longer be enough to satisfy your craving for dopamine, much less life itself. Okay, when you're giving yourself access to that degree of instant gratification and pleasure on a frequent basis, especially if you're watching it every day or even multiple times a day, life literally becomes less enjoyable because it takes more and more stimulation to trigger your dopamine receptors to experience the feeling of happiness, of joy that you're seeking every time you fire up the websites. So you are literally making your life less enjoyable. And what this does is it worsens the addiction. This is how they get you. This is why the pornography industry is generating $12 to $14 billion per year in just the US alone. I don't even know the worldwide statistics. You can source that yourself, but 12 to 14 billion. It's because once they have you, they have you. Because now you have to continue watching the content to chase that high. This is also, by the way, how people go from smoking weed, for example, to doing hard drugs or psychedelics or things of that nature. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's how it works. Okay, people start off with the gateway drug, the harmless gateway drug, just this once, or just on the weekends with my friends. And that turns into a full-blown addiction because they're chasing that initial high and they will never actually catch it. That's the irony. They'll never catch it. But pornography and the pornographic industry is exploiting that. It's exploiting that ignorance of the cycle that you are very likely caught in at this moment in time. It's exploiting this by giving you a seemingly infinite supply of content to consume. And like I said, this worsens your addiction because now you're watching more extreme videos to try to find or catch that initial high. And even if you do catch it, you just move the bar even higher. And this is actually how people like Ted Bundy become what they became. Now, obviously, there are other factors at play. I'm not insinuating that Ted Bundy was a serial killer only because of his pornography addiction, but it was definitely a key factor. Because at a certain point, the videos were not enough for him. The videos were not enough to stimulate his dopamine receptors, and he needed more. He needed to take it off screen. And this could very well happen to you. I'm not saying that you'll become a serial killer like Ted Bundy, but you could end up putting yourself in very, very bad situations where you're doing things purely out of lust and out of a desire for that dopamine rush, which you will never catch. And you'll get progressively more risky and audacious with your pursuit of dopamine. That is how they get you. Now, I'm making this video to hopefully stop the cycle right now and prevent the next Ted Bundy from becoming the next Ted Bundy. Because it could be you for all you know, or maybe it could be somebody else. But the point is, with this information, you are now armed to resist the pornography industry. Now, I know after hearing all of this information, you're probably thinking, well, Jordan, we should create some sort of law. Not we, I'm not a politician. I don't even live in the US, but the politicians, the government, should create a law or a set of laws to ban pornography altogether. I vehemently disagree. I disagree that pornography should be illegal. Why? Why do I disagree after having said everything that I just said? Well, for one, even if it's illegal, it's still going to be accessible. It'll just be harder to access. But aside from that, I'm a big proponent of the quote that goes, "Don't wish for a lighter load, wish for a stronger back." In other words, if pornography becomes illegal, you're just going to find something else. It might be adjacent to pornography or maybe not. But the point is, you're going to find some other sort of muse or vice to scratch that itch that you have for dopamine. And my goal is not to help you just overcome your pornography addiction, but help you actually build a stronger back, metaphorically speaking, that is, so that you can build the life that you don't need an escape from. Now, if that sounds appealing to you, if you want to build a life that you don't need an escape from, if you want to learn to take control of your life and actually make a permanent escape from the life that you're living to the life that you'd rather live, rather than making a temporary escape via that dopamine rush that pornography gives you and continue to put money in the pockets of these, quite frankly, evil people, click the link in the description to get my free PMO Relapse Recovery Guide ebook. It is a free ebook, no strings attached, no shipping and handling, no taxes, nothing. It is a free ebook. It's a 15-minute read, and it's specifically designed to help young men like yourself, ages 18 to 24, or anybody near that demographic, who are addicted to pornography, overcome their porn addiction, leave lust in the dust, and take control of their lives. Click the link in the description and get the free ebook before I come to my senses and start charging the money that it's actually worth.